Hi, my name is Peyton Snider. I'm a sixth grade English Language Arts teacher in Cherokee County School District, and this presentation will be Artifact 6, which covers three different standards and criterion. The first one being Standard 3.1 and Criterion 8, implement learning experiences for students to be empathetic and socially responsible. Over this last year, I created and implemented a series of mini lessons that cover a range of topics. The first two that I'll talk about include the topics of empathy and being socially responsible online. The first mini lesson that I implemented is called Think Before You Speak, which focuses on responding with empathy to people online. The essential question for this mini lesson was, how does responding to others online with empathy contribute to a better sense of community? It's really important because these middle schoolers really don't know the understanding of what empathy is. So I incorporated that into my lesson with it starting off with just the word empathy on the board. And I gave students sticky notes where they wrote words that came to mind when they saw the word empathy, what they thought it meant, how they felt about the word, any experiences they've had with the word, to kind of hook the students and get them talking about the word itself, because I realized a lot of students didn't know what that meant. After we had a brief talk about the sticky note activity, we moved on to a TED Talk video, which you can see a screenshot of here. It was actually a student, a young girl, who gave the TED Talk presentation about how kids can benefit from empathy and love language, which was really powerful. We then moved on to a short PowerPoint presentation, continuing the conversation of how to respond to people with empathy. And then we ran through some practice scenarios, which led to some wonderful discussions. The second mini lesson was called Double Check Yourself, and it focused on contributing responsibly online. The essential question for this mini unit or mini lesson was, how can I foster a better community with my responses to others online? And the objective for this lesson was to help learners understand the importance of engaging in respectful conversation with people in their online community, and for them to practice this skill. A quick overview of the lesson you can see on the screen was Responding Appropriately video that we watched, a circle up discussion with prompts that led to wonderful discussion with one another, a teacher-led presentation, the sources of strength student scenarios and discussion, and then a group scenario activity. A quick activity description. So the lesson will begin by having that video already pulled up to watch. The video is called How to Respond and Interact with Others Respectfully Online. The video is just kind of an introduction to the topic by having students reflect on what they post. The video highlights some guiding questions for students to think about before posting, commenting, sharing, doing things online. And this will kind of highlight and guide us straight into those discussion questions and conversations that we're going to have during the rest of the mini lesson. We circle up in our class during homerooms for discussion. Circling up is when we circle around the room and hold a talking piece. If you're holding the talking piece, you have the option to respond or to say pass, because we want to make sure everybody feels comfortable speaking, or not if they choose to. And so we go through and everybody has the opportunity to speak and answer the question that's been presented. And I had two questions for this lesson. The first being, have you ever commented or shared something online that you wish you hadn't, or deleted immediately, even if it was nothing bad or mean, maybe just a silly picture? And so then we passed the talking piece around the room and gave students the opportunity to respond to the question. During the responses, the expectations are that the rest of the class is being quiet and listening and not responding, to create a safe space for people to speak. The second question I asked was, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being embarrassed and 5 being you don't really care, how would you feel if I had printed out a book of every single thing that you've ever posted online? Comments, pictures you've taken, Snapchats, B-reels, all the different social medias that they have. Once we finished that circle up, I had students go back to their desks, and they are currently in groups in my room. So it was really a good transition. So the second piece of the activity, which you can see on the second side of the screen, are some scenarios where students acted out these scenarios in front of the class, and we decided if that was a good example or a bad example, and that was kind of how the lesson went. Artifact 6 also covers Standard 3.3 and Criterion 10, mentor students in a safe, ethical, and legal use, including intellectual property. Mini lessons 3 and 4 covered safe, ethical, and legal digital life. Within those two lessons, we talked about online safety and also fair use and copyright. The lesson Think Twice focuses on online safety. The essential question was, how do you chat safely with people online? I teach middle schoolers, so they are constantly on different forms of social media or online in general. A quick overview of the lesson: we did a whiteboard brain dump and a poll, a table scenario conversation and activity. We watched a Common Sense Media video, which our district pays for Common Sense Media subscription, so we have access to all of the Common Sense Media content, and we are encouraged to use that by our media specialist as well. And then we talked about red flags and made an anchor chart for that. The lesson started with the sticky note activity, where I had a question on the board that said, what app or online forum do you use the most to talk to people online? Students recorded that and went and stuck the sticky note up on the board, and we put those in categories to kind of poll to see what they use the most. We then discussed the importance of knowing who you're speaking to online. So I gave them the scenario of the table, which is there are 4 types of people that you interact with. The first are the people who sit at your table. Those are your closest friends that you talk to. You would give your best, your deepest secrets to. You trust them the most. Then there's the second group of people. These are the people that sit at the table around you. They're close to you. You interact with them a lot, but they're not your best friends. They don't know your secrets. They don't know a lot about you. The third group of people are people that are just in the same restaurant as you. They're people that you see and that you might speak to on a surface level. You don't really get deep with these people, and maybe you don't even really know them. And then the fourth group of people are people outside the restaurant, which are essentially strangers. So we talked about that, and then I had students use a graphic organizer to draw the table scenario out and write who they believe are at each of those tables. And they didn't have to write specific names. It could be very generalized, which was perfectly fine. After that activity, I played the Common Sense Media video, Chatting and Red Flags. Again, we have a subscription to that and are encouraged to use it. After we watched the video, we talked about what those red flags mean, and we made an anchor chart as a class about what our red flags are in terms of speaking with people online. And we were able to get that printed, and I made it cute to hang up in my room to use as a reference the rest of the year. The fourth mini lesson was titled What's Mine is Mine and What's Yours is Also Mine, which covered fair use and copyright, which is something that I realized my middle schoolers don't know a lot about, and it was really important for me to teach this, especially in the English language arts classroom where they are writing. The essential question was, how can we guarantee that what we use from the internet is fair and ethical? This lesson, quick overview, we had a hook and engaging scenario, we watched a Common Sense Media video, and we really wanted to focus on this content a little bit more rigorously because it is something that connects to all of the content classes in terms of writing essays and doing research, so we had guided notes and a PowerPoint presentation. This mini lesson started with an engaging scenario, like I mentioned before, to kind of highlight the importance of fair use and copyright and what that means on a very middle school level. I came in and spoke to my students about how excited I was about winning an award. I won a $500 prize for submitting an essay to an essay contest, and I picked a random student in the room to give credit for because I told them that I used their essay because I wasn't feeling like writing one. So I used their essay to submit to the contest and I won $500. The students freaked out. They were like, that's not fair, which led into a wonderful conversation about creativity, copyright, and fair use. And that's when I showed the Common Sense Media video that highlighted those things. We also went through a PowerPoint, which you can see 2 of the slides here. And students were able to fill in some guided notes that I asked them to keep in their binders so that they can reference them when they're writing essays, when they're doing projects, things like that, gathering information that they need to make sure they give credit to and are using fairly online. Artifact 6 also covers Standard 3.4 and Criterion 11, which is modeling responsible use, including the protection of digital identity and personal data. Mini lessons 5 and 6 cover the topics of digital identity and data privacy, with the mini lessons Who Are You Online and Keep It to Yourself. The mini lesson, Who Are You Online, focuses on digital identity and digital footprint. The essential question for this mini lesson was, why is it important to present your authentic, real self online? Again, this topic is really important for me as a middle school teacher to discuss with my students because a lot of them are starting to get more online regularly. A quick lesson overview, we did another circle up discussion with some questions. We watched a Common Sense Media video with a PowerPoint presentation, and we did the anonymous paperback activity. To begin the lesson, I had a PowerPoint pulled up and asked the students to get in our circle chat format. This is something that we do pretty regularly, so the students were familiar with what that process looked like. We actually only had one question or 2 questions for this particular circle chat. The first one being, what do you think it means to be authentic? And the second question being, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most authentic, how would you rate yourself on being authentic online? And that prompted a lot of really good discussion. And then I asked the students to go back to their seats, and we started through that mini lesson PowerPoint presentation. So we also watched the video with the PowerPoint that went along from Common Sense Media, talking about teen voices, presenting yourself online. It was really powerful because it was a lot of students in the video talking about being authentic online and presenting yourself accurately and truthfully online. We then moved on and did the anonymous paperback activity. It's where students received either a piece of paper or a paper plate. I ended up running out of paper plates, so some people had paper. And I asked them to tape it to their back, write their name in the middle of it. And for about 5 minutes, students walked around the room to their classmates and wrote words or phrases that they believe represented that person. And it was anonymous because you really don't know who wrote what by the time you take the plate off of your back and you have a chance to look at it. So when that timer went off after the 5 minutes, students took the papers off their back and returned to their seat. I asked the students to read off the words and highlight, and I really highlighted the fact that this is how people are seeing them and that they need to take that to heart. They're doing a great job of being their true selves, but if they're agreeing with the things that they see on their paper. But if they're getting upset or seeing things that they don't really believe is true about themselves, it might mean that they aren't representing themselves in the best way possible, and that's something that they should reflect on. I told them that this doesn't mean that that's exactly who they are, but it was just an opportunity for them to reflect and think about it. The last mini lesson was called Keep It to Yourself, which focused on data privacy. The essential question for this mini lesson was, what information do I need to keep to myself when using the internet? And a quick lesson overview, we had a hook and engaging scenario that was presented, a Common Sense Media video, and then guided notes with a PowerPoint presentation. We focused a lot on the Common Sense Media video and PowerPoint presentation, which focused on private and personal information. It was a great video that highlighted how students needed to learn the difference between what personal things they can safely share online and then private information that probably shouldn't be shared. And it prompted a lot of really good discussion. Towards the end of the lesson, one of the things that we were asked to do was to create little infographics or posters that highlighted the do's and don'ts of data privacy, highlighting what students should share and what they shouldn't share. So I asked students to either work independently or with a partner on creating some infographics, posters. They could do these digitally or on Canva or PowerPoint, just highlighting the do's and don'ts of data privacy and what to share online. These are just some examples of things that students created. Some students kept it really simple and sweet, and others took a lot of time. These are the 2 that I ended up printing out and hanging up in my room for display, just as a reference point and an anchor chart for students to have during the day. Thank you so much for listening.